Hello, everyone, and welcome to Dynamics of a Podcast, the only podcast dedicated to Professor James Moriarty, Napoleon of Crime, and arch nemesis of Sherlock Holmes. I'm Madeline Quinones, and I am joined by my lovely co-host.
Dixie Parkinson.
And today we have a special guest with us, Monica Schmidt. Hi, Monica.
Hey Madeline, hey Dixie, how you guys doing today?
Well, I think we're probably doing better than you.
That's fair. That's completely fair. I am in the midst of COVID recovery, so I am
Yeah.
definitely beaming in from a location undisclosed.
And I've, oh, as usual, running gag with this podcast, I feel like at this point, I am super tired, especially since I've just been out shoveling my driveway, but at least I can now get out of my driveway and get back in. So
Huzzah.
we have about a foot of snow. So,
That is nice. We're just under 2 feet here in Iowa,
ooh,
and I'm lucky. All the snow came while either I was in the process of traveling to New York or before I got back. So, my husband, bless him, shoveled everything and plowed everything, which is great. And my brother-in-law, who is a gentleman, actually lives in the Des Moines area where I flew out of, and he drove to the airport and shoveled my car out of the
oh,
snowdrift that formed around it.
oh,
So,
bless
needless to
him.
say, I owe Dustin and Ann and their family dinner. I'm glad I didn't opt to buy them dinner on Sunday when I got back.
Right, right.
Otherwise, I would have exposed them to what I have. But down the road, when they come to Iowa City, I'll make sure that they're taken care of because that was above and beyond the call of duty.
That was really lovely of them. And
Very.
also, your ginger is superior.
I agree. My ginger is superior, and he has been making sure that I am happy and fed and taken care of at a distance while
Hmm.
we quarantine on separate floors of the house while I deal with the
Hmm.
COVID. So
Hmm.
yeah,
Ah, it's the fun of the occupational hazard of Sherlockian socializing in these times. So today we are here to talk about BSI Weekend 2024. And before we jump into that, really quickly, housekeeping. I still haven't really figured out how to do Instagram for podcasting, so my apologies there. I think we're on Blue Sky now. Yes, we are on Blue Sky. We're on Blue Sky. We're on Twitter, although I try not to be on Twitter. We're on Facebook. And you can find us as Dynamics of a Podcast or Dynamics of a Pod in all those places. You can email us at dynamicsofapodcast@gmail.com. And we love to hear from you,
Yeah.
from our listeners. Yeah. Which reminds me, I do hear from Brad Kefauver every time we post. So, something that he did note about our last episode about Sherlock Holmes in the 22nd century was that Tennyson, who is in a hover chair and nonverbal and communicates with beeps,
Mhm.
might be an homage to the original Christopher Pike in Star Trek.
Oh, that makes
Interesting.
sense.
Huh.
Yeah. So he explained why, and I was like, oh, it's because I don't have a whole lot of original series knowledge. But that would be in, based on what he told me, that would be in line with their other ways that they pay tribute to Star Trek and other pop culture in the show. So,
It would make sense. I mean, and we need to fix the lack of TOS knowledge,
Yeah.
especially since if you're coming to visit the next time, we will have to take a jaunt a little further south of Iowa City so you can visit the future birthplace of Captain.
Yeah.
oh, I'd love to.
All right. Sounds like a plan. And we'll make a stop at the University of Iowa Special Collections just because they have a really amazing Star Trek collection, fanzine collection, and all of Nicholas Meyer's papers. So you get the nexus between Sherlock Holmes and Star Trek at the University of Iowa, which is really, really cool.
Well, that is actually a good segue into the fact that we are going to be back at 221 BCon again this year,
Mhm.
doing a podcast panel again, and we will be talking about the intersection of Sherlock Holmes and Star Trek. So,
Oh, that's perfect. Have
yeah.
you, I'm assuming you've read Bob Steck's Spocklock.
I have not yet, but he did give me his copy, which or one of his printed copies. So, uh,
Excellent.
yes,
It's quite lovely. I mean, it's I don't really do pastiche very much, but it's quite lovely. I think you'll enjoy it a lot.
I'm sure I will. I'm looking forward to it. So you can you can support us on Ko-fi.com/dynamics of podcast or Patreon.com/dynamics of podcast. If you subscribe to us on Patreon, we do have rewards. We have stickers, which nobody has gone for yet, but and so I haven't actually printed them yet, but I think that they're I'm pretty sure they're gonna print well, and definitely the art cards have printed well. At the $5 level, you get art cards. At the super generous $10 level, you get a bunch of stuff. So, please support your Moriarty podcasters because the
Mm.
professor does not. Uh, and
What a greedy beggar that guy is.
and he wants us to vote for him.
You know, I'm not wearing my blazer that on the inside of my burgundy blazer that I was wearing during the weekend. I did have the Vote for Moriarty pin, so I can, like flash it a little bit. And people thought that was rather hilarious. So
Yeah, so that I think is a good enough segue into the weekend. Bob Scharfman from Chicago brought along vote for Moriarty pins and was handing them out to people. And he's written a paper about Moriarty that I still haven't read yet. I'm sorry, I'm so behind on my BSJ reading. But I was just absolutely delighted by the vote for Moriarty pin um yeah, Dixie, hopefully I can pick up one for you as well because they're just really cute.
Oh, that would be fun.
I'm
Yeah.
sure we can have that arranged.
Yeah.
Bob is pretty generous with
Oh
those things.
yes. Oh yes. And it was very funny. There was a lot of joking about why vote for the lesser of two evils when you can vote for the greater.
I won't weigh in politically here.
No, no, no. We try not to do that. Um, that was a lot of fun, and I was like, "Oh boy, I can't wait to talk about this on podcast." Um, so yeah, let's see, when did people start getting it? I think Greg Ruby was one of the earliest people to get into town, like on Monday.
Yes, I should probably explain the context of this. Greg Ruby, who is my Sherlockian bestie, my sib from another crib, and my BSI classmate, is the official BSI reservations guy. And so he arrives into town a day or two early just to make sure that
Gotcha,
all the things are smoothed out. So he's
gotcha.
not just arriving early just to be, just to show up early. Dude's working the entire
Oh yeah,
time.
oh
And
yeah.
when bad things happen, which sometimes they do, sometimes people's reservations go amiss, or somebody has an emergency situation and has to cancel, or somebody has to is stuck in town and needs an extra night at the hotel. Greg is the guy through all those things, or that handles all of those things. And so he is the fellow who's responsible for essentially making all the hotel stuff happen, which is
Huge.
astounding.
Yeah.
He deserves a massive pay raise.
I mean, he definitely deserved every bit of the 2 shilling award that he got last year.
That he did, that he did. And I am so happy for him and so proud of him for that
Yeah.
because well deserved indeed. So
Hmm.
a number of us end up showing up on Tuesday because I have to admit my custom has to show up on Tuesday just because of Midwest winter weather, which is what I ran into this year. My flight was supposed to arrive at 11 a.m. New York time. But because we had 16 inches of snow in Iowa, which closed down the Des Moines airport and delayed my flight, I didn't arrive until 6.5 hours later, but just in time for the early arrivals dinner. So I was able to get out of the airplane, grab my luggage from the airport, grab a cab to the hotel, drop off my stuff, and head to the early arrivals dinner on Tuesday night, which was quite lovely. We'll just say it's a small gathering of people who decide to come early. Some of the Europeans come a little bit early, and then there's some other people for various reasons show up early. I
Mm-hmm.
do it mostly because I want a buffer day,
Mm-hmm.
just for travel purposes, but also if if things go awry, then nothing official starts till Wednesday. But also, just to give myself a buffer day to readjust and reacclimatize. Plus, with my particular role as being BSI press sales as well as BSI merchandise. So I'm responsible for the neckties, bow ties, cummerbunds, pocket squares, silk scarves, and now winter scarves for the club. So basically, I'm the haberdasher of the BSI. But I have inventory that I keep at my house, which
Mm-hmm.
needs to get to New York and
Mm-hmm.
then sorted out. And with
Mm-hmm.
the books, I have copies of books that need to be sorted through and distributed. And so I'm also working the entire weekend, but in a completely and utterly different capacity than Greg. But that extra buffer day gives me time to kind of go through that and get sorted and make sure my hotel room doesn't look like a complete and utter like disaster area.
Yeah, for sure. That I can definitely see how that would be harder to do even if you got in early on Wednesday. So that makes a lot
Yeah.
of sense.
It would be very rushed on Wednesday just
Yeah,
because I'd have to deal with the books and I'd have to figure out like merchandising and it just
right. I mean, I was right there when you were, like figuring out who was going to be where and when you were going to be able to make handoffs and stuff. So yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
I like having hands-on service, but as Madeline witnessed, it does come with some downsides. It just means that I'm running constantly during the weekend, which is great for burning off energy and maintaining focus. Not always great for the fun merriment, but I can sacrifice a little merriment every now and again.
So I got in Wednesday morning
Hmm.
and I think that again I might not have actually slept Tuesday night, but like last time I made the mistake of like getting upset about it. And this
Hmm.
time I was like, no, no, I'm lying in bed. I'm totally relaxed. My eyes are closed. Like even if I don't sleep, this is still better than not
Yeah.
going, not doing
Yeah.
not resting at all. So,
Yeah.
um,
I mean, in the giant scheme of things, there's usually space for a nap somewhere in the
I mean,
schedule.
there
So
there is and there was. I just even as tired as I was, I didn't nap because my body tends to be very good at giving me second winds, even when I don't want them. So I tend not to nap unless I'm sick. That's like how that's how I can tell that I am actually quite sick is when I'm actually able to sleep during the day.
yeah, no, and that absolutely makes sense. I'm in the same boat actually. I'm usually running on caffeine and adrenaline myself, so it's
Yeah,
it's pretty par for the course for me too.
yeah,
But we had a lovely lunch
we
because
did.
yeah, normally um I meet with a couple of friends, for lunch, just kind of as a down tempo, chill, relaxed opportunity to gather in a relaxed environment before the insanity starts. And so we had a nice down tempo lunch. My friend and BSI classmate Ira Matetsky selected a wonderful restaurant very close to his office, and
Hmm.
we had really wonderful Italian and yeah, good conversation and a good time.
Yeah, no, that was lovely. I mean, uh, the food was amazing and the company was even better. And
cannot complain about any of it. So.
Absolutely not. And I mean, it was something that just stands out though for in my memory is that Ira just kept prompting Bobcats on stories, and Bob is not going to resist an opportunity to storytell.
Bob
So
is an excellent storyteller.
yeah, oh, absolutely, absolutely, and I was loving it. That was a lot of fun. Um,
Excellent, excellent, excellent. And then I think after that, the official, the unofficial, unofficial kickoff to the weekend occurred, which is Ash Wednesday.
well,
Did you have something in between?
before
Oh,
that though was the radio play which you actually went
oh,
to.
geez, I'm so sorry. My internal brain. I've done the BSI weekend for so many years that my brain just kind of automatically cues to the standard schedule versus
Hmm.
the unstandard schedule. And this year we had a lovely radio play by Hal Glatzer. Um, Hal is actually an author and playwright who's originally from New York but lived in Hawaii for a while. And I mean, he's lived all over the world. Lovely fella. And he decided to host a dramatization, if you will, or a production of an audio play that he created based on flat finders or like apartment finders type of thing. It was cute. It was lovely. It was at the Salmagundi Club. It had some actors that Hal knew, and also the Baker Street Irregulars' own Tiffany Knight, who is fabulous and wonderful, and is a dresser on Broadway, and is always among the best dressed during the weekend,
Oh
just because
yes.
very few people can put together an outfit quite as well as Tiffany.
Oh yeah, definitely. No, she's fabulous. Um, I'm I'm sorry that I missed it, but I opted to just go back to the hotel and I wasn't gonna nap, but I was just gonna kind of chill.
Hmm.
So the fun thing is that as I was walking back up to the Westin, getting out of a car there, in the drive was Chris Thornton, Crystal Nolan, and Heather Holloway.
Oh,
And so we were like,
you found your peeps.
yeah. So honestly, one of my favorite parts of the weekend then commenced, which is the slow but steady gathering of Sherlockians in the lobby of the Westin on
Oh
Wednesday
yeah.
afternoon. It is just it just makes me so happy. And I think that this is something that probably happens at a lot of Sherlockian conferences when,
Oh yeah.
everybody's in the same hotel and people are
Hmm.
just coming in and you keep pulling up chairs and pushing tables together and
Yep.
it's just a lovely, lovely time. It just makes my little heart happy.
It's a family reunion.
It
I mean,
really is.
yeah. Actually, the funny thing is, the first year that I went, I didn't know a lot of people. Actually, this is the 10th anniversary of me doing BSI weekend, so this is January of
Oh,
2014. Um, I I had only attended three Sherlockian events outside of my local science society by that point. Um, the Minnesota Conference in 2010, the Minnesota Conference in 2013, and then the Hounds of the Baskerville dinner in Chicago in 2013, so October of
okay.
2013. And so I didn't know a lot of people. And I knew that I was at the Roosevelt. I even had a roommate I had never met before, Anne Margaret Lewis, who is a lovely human being, and we have been friends for the last decade because of being paired together. But the first year that I went, it was the Yale Club and then the Roosevelt Hotel, which is now closed and is being used in other capacities, which is fine, although it's soul crushing. But I sat down in the lobby of the Roosevelt Hotel, hoping to find familiar faces, and I saw in the crowd a gentleman that I recognized from the Minnesota conference. And I didn't really know his name, but I remembered his face. And so I kind of glommed onto him. And that was Steve Mason, not
Oh.
realizing that it was Steve's first BSI weekend as well. But he was there with the rest of the Texans. And so, I kind of followed like a little duckling, followed them over to was Ash Wednesday at Annie Moore's at the time. And by the time that Phil Cunningham from Chicago, who is one of my or who has become one of my dear friends, but also said during the Hounds dinner that he would keep an eye out for me since it would be my first weekend.
Mm.
Phil tells the story that by the time that he connected with me, I was speaking with a Texas drawl. So it was lovely. But I mean, the whole congregating in the lobby aspect is very, very standard because this is like a family reunion. If you're new, and you know maybe one or two people and they happen to be part of that crowd, they'll wave you in and bring you in, and soon you'll have you'll be part of it, and incorporated in it, just
Yeah.
because that's how this works, is that this is the delightful, weird, extended family.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, I love it that you recognize Steve Mason, but also it was like it was his first time too. But it nevertheless, Steve Mason is a very good person to glom onto. So
Oh yeah, Steve was always a gentleman. I remembered him from the Minnesota conference, in 20, so it would have been August of 2013, and I mean, he was a nice guy, and I remember Don Hobbs, and
hmm
there was Stu, and there was Dean, and so it's like there was this entire group of kind of Texas or Texas adjacent people that were there that I was just like, I know your faces. You're my people. We're going to go hang out now. And I'm going to be much less scared, because it was my first time in New York, like
Yeah.
ever.
Yeah.
So I was not only attending BSI Weekend for the first time, but I had never been to New York before. Now, I mean, it was so intimidating back then. Now I'm just like, whatevs. It feels old hat after a decade of doing this, which I mean, I realized like that sounds like awful, but it's like I'm a much more seasoned traveler that
Well, you're more
now than I
comfortable
was a
with it,
decade
and
ago.
that's good.
And I will take the comfort. The comfort is
Yeah.
good.
Yeah. Well, and so this was my second time doing the weekend, and last year was not only my first time doing the weekend, but also my first time in New York. And so, I leaned on your advice. Also, Chris Zordon was very
Mhm.
helpful, and also Beth and Ashley, and so I'm very grateful to everybody who helped my first weekend be nice and smooth. And so this time I got to hang out with some people for whom this was their first weekend. And
Mhm.
so um your second rodeo is not you are not an expert on your second rodeo,
No,
contrary
you're
to
not
the
an
joke.
expert.
But
Yeah. But you are a
but
seasoned veteran compared to the newbies,
you
and so you can
you
help.
can help. Yes, yes. So I was very happy to be able to pay it forward.
That's how I met
Um,
Greg, actually. My second year was his first year, and so I was just kind of like,
um,
"Hi, Greg Albert, you're going to be my friend now. Come with me." And I mean, seriously, that's a little more to it than that, but not much more to it. But that's how Greg and I became friends.
aw.
And I'm like, you're new, you're coming with me. So
And technically that is how we got to be friends via Zoom,
yeah,
was like you let like I showed up as a new face and you're like, "Ooh, new person. Here, come do this and this."
it is the blessing and the curse of being an extrovert in this generally introverted community is that there is some degree of obligation, and that's not in a bad way obligation, but there's some degree of obligation that I use my extroversion for positivity, and I'm perfectly fine with that. The way that I always view it is a stranger is just a friend you haven't made yet. So
Oh yes, definitely. So yeah, it was Amanda Dance Champlin's first time, and um, that was really fun. She was very ambitious. Well, she has a lot more energy than I do. But she did a heck of a lot of sightseeing, and I'm so proud of her, for just getting out and getting around the town and stuff. And this was also I always assume that I'm like one of that I'm kind of late to the party, as it were.
Mhm.
But no, there's still people starting out all the time, and then other people doing BSI weekend for the first time who have been Sherlockians for a long time, like
Absolutely.
Ed Pettit
Oh
from
yes,
Philadelphia.
Ed. Ed.
So, Ed is the a person from the Rosenbach Library and Museum who hosts a bunch of different like literature YouTube series, including currently Sherlock Mondays, which Monica is a part of.
Yep, I'm
And
one of the four co-hosts that
mm-hmm,
rotates through. Ed is the standard co-host that is throughout the series, and
mm-hmm.
he's an exceedingly lovely human being.
He really
He's a
is.
hobbit, but he's way too tall for that.
He's a very tall hobbit. Yeah, no, he showed up in like, this old-fashioned tweed suit, and it was lovely, and and this is his first time doing it, so got
Mhm.
to hang out with him a lot, and that was just so much fun. He is a lovely person, and nah, I just really enjoyed that. That was one of the highlights for me.
Well, I'm
Um,
glad. I'm glad. And I'm glad we were able to convince Ed to go. Now that he's doing the Sherlock Mondays podcast, I think he feels a little more grounded within understanding the literature, just because it forces him to do a big deep dive. And also after several years of being a member of the Sons of the Copper Beaches of Philadelphia and connecting with the various Sherlockians locally, regionally, and then we'll just say nationally because I'm not quite regional, but I fly in for the beaches meeting. Um, I think Ed finally decided that even though he doesn't really like to travel outside of Philly, that it would be worth it. And the email that I received from him indicates that we'll just say he'll be making a return trip to New York.
Oh, that's
Oh.
great. That
I
makes me
am
really
I am
happy.
over the moon for him because it's we'll just say BSI weekend for me is kind of almost like the center of the Sherlockian universe, in terms of social engagement and
Mm-hmm.
such.
Mm-hmm.
But if there's one event that one is going to attend and one is more into academia, I would recommend attending the Minnesota conference. But if you're going to attend two events and you're comfortable with socializing, BSI weekend.
Yes. Yes, definitely. Let's see, gathering thoughts.
We're up to
Um,
Ash Wednesday, I believe.
Ash Wednesday, yes. So, Ash Wednesday has moved venues now from Annie Moore's to the Joyce Public House. It was
Hmm.
a really nice place. We had like um, this slightly elevated level. It was like really pretty, and yeah, good food, good service, good friends.
Hmm.
I got to finally like spend some more time with Tamar Zafran,
Oh, Tamara
and
is lovely.
Tamar is just like sunshine personified.
I think you summed her up best. She is fantastic and just a ginormous ball of nothing but radiation of positivity. She's
Yes,
great. We love Tamara.
yes, yes. And also, well, this was also I properly met PJ Sullivan for the first
Hmm.
time, which was terrific. So I also spent a lot of time with PJ, and she's great.
Yes, she is.
Yeah, it was just a really nice time at Ash Wednesday, and just moving around and seeing more people coming in, and
Hmm.
uh yeah, it was good. And then afterwards, some of us went down to Rosie Dunn's um for the later night socializing, and that's when I finally met back up with Beth, who was my roomie again, and she had gotten into town too late to really be part of the Ash dinner, coming in, from California as she does. I think it actually was Wednesday night that I finally got together a small game of Canon Pictionary. I was very happy about that. So it was me and Beth and Chris Sword
Hmm.
and Rudy Altergott playing, and I'd brought along a little um drawing pad and I'd written down like all the canon stories. So this is at least how I was introduced to the game.
Hmm.
Was that you have the list of canon stories and then somebody prompts you and you draw you try to draw the story and then the guesses and the silliness ensues and that was a lot of fun and there were some really crazy was it a couple of times when we just gave up. I was just like I don't know what I'm looking. I don't know how this connects.
Hmm.
I don't know how this connects. um
Yeah, I will not lie. I would suck at that. Like between that and drunk cannon, I'm awful. I mean,
well,
well, we'll just say my secret as a Sherlockian is that it's like I know the stories in general, but it's like I don't know them as well as most other people in the room. I kind of take my little area of narrow focus and focus in on that, and that's what I know. And when it comes to the broader canon, oh man, I am not a quiz master. We'll just say is that I leave the minutia up to you, Madeline. I'm tag teaming you to be on my trivia teams because
well
you rocked it out in St. Louis. Like you put us all to shame, kid.
what I was gonna say was there was actually there were actually a couple of quizzes. Let's see. Guess Like Ayla and Lost in New York. And I didn't do great on either of them because they are actually based on things inside the canon. And that to me is different from trivia surrounding Sherlock Holmes.
Fair.
So,
We all have our areas of specialty. So, but still, you're on my trivia team. Totally.
no,
I
but
mean, I'd fight people for you at that point.
well, so I mean, it doesn't, it for as far as canon fiction era goes, it doesn't matter if you are good at drawing or not. It's really all about the silliness. I mean, you're not even keeping score.
Hmm.
It's all about the fun. And so I was very, very happy about that. And everybody else was enjoyed themselves tremendously. So that was good. And
Yeah.
then there was Thursday morning. Thursday morning was the Christopher Morley walk, which I did not do, and I'm starting to think maybe about trying to do that next year.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, it's been there for forever, and I highly recommend it. I mean, it's
yeah.
if you don't make it, so the Christopher Morley Memorial Walk was started by Dory Nash, or actually, I'm not sure if it was started by Dory Nash and Jim Cox or continued, but it's been run by them for years. And it's essentially a guided tour through New York City, stopping at several of the haunts of BSI founder Christopher Morley. Unfortunately, New York has changed so much over the years that a lot of it is this is where a building where Christopher Morley used to drink, used to stand, but it's been ripped down,
Yeah.
and now here's a Starbucks. I mean, which happens, but it's also a really cool way of learning a little bit more about New York. And if you've never really taken the subway, it's a good kind of quick guided orientation on how to take the subway so you can feel comfortable with that for those of us who are new and don't do public transportation very well. But it's lovely. And Jim and Dory are wonderful hosts and do a really great job. That's actually where I met Curtis Armstrong for the first time is on a Morley walk.
Ah.
So which
And
was
then,
which was fun. So
of
go ahead.
course,
Yeah,
meeting Curtis is
Curtis.
always a good time.
Exactly.
Um, So then later in the morning was the ACD Society Awards and the second annual running of the Wessex Cup.
And I can't discuss this too much because I'll be discussing this tomorrow on oh gosh, on Sherlock
Sherlock
Mondays
Mondays, yeah, fair.
because of Silver Blaze. But I mean it's the most fun that you can have having an indoor horse race with plastic horses and jockeys in New York in January. I mean it's madcap chaos and my horse we'll just say my horse bucked off my jockey, and basically had to be sacrificed and put down because it was lame and is now on its way to the glue factory um, because it performed that poorly.
I
But
mean, Peggy, so it was Monica and I versus each other, and Peggy was like, "I'm not sure that anybody actually deserved to be said to have won." And I'm like, that's totally fair because my horse didn't perform much better, but
hey, yours still performed much better than mine, so I'm giving it to you. But actually, who won this year?
Joe Eckridge.
Oh, yay, Joe. Okay, Joe Eckridge from St. Louis. So,
Yeah,
oh, that's
yeah.
wonderful. But it's I mean it's fun. It's not
It's
about
fun.
winning.
Yeah.
It's just about having a lot of fun and enjoying yourself. Plus, there's the ACD Doilian Honors, which is lovely.
Hmm.
And I was, for the first 2 years, I was the chair for the visual and performance arts, which is actually now being chaired by said previously or aforementioned Crystal Nolan, Heather Holloway, who will do, in all honesty, a much better job than I. Unfortunately, it's always my busy time of year during the winter holidays, which of course is the time that all things need to be done and tabulated, and they can dedicate the time and the energy that I cannot during that
Right.
period. But I'll still remain on the on the committee, so I'll serve under them, which will be fine. So it'll be good stuff. But yeah, so there was the ACD Society, Doilian Honors and the Wessex Cup. And then what did you end up doing that afternoon?
Well, so first, a bunch of us still went over to McSorley's for
Hmm.
lunch, and met up with the Morley Walk crew, because that's where the Morley Walk ends, is at McSorley's,
Hmm.
and and that was a lot of fun. And I had the chili this time, and the chili was lovely. Uh,
Good.
and then yeah, by the time we got there and got through lunch, I'd originally been thinking of trying to do two separate things. And by the time we were done, I was like, well, I can only really do one. I can't do both and spend enough time doing both to make it worth it,
Hmm.
considering travel time, because uh, Mysterious Bookshop and McSorley's are in downtown Manhattan, and other things were further uptown. So
Hmm.
you gotta always leave yourself time for travel in New York.
That you do. That you
Um,
do. It's those of us who are accustomed to living in the Midwest and just getting in our cars and driving,
you
it's a
do
little
not,
bit
yeah.
different. Yeah.
Not like that in Manhattan. That's for
Nope.
sure. So, there was a group that headed by Anastasia Klimchinskaya who went over to the Grolier Club to see or what was, I think it's been switched out now, the then current exhibit about
Hmm.
early detective or foundational detective fiction, which is really cool. I wanted to be part of that group, but I decided to opt out because Ashley Polisek was also like having a little get together to show off her new place in Upper West Side. Um, so I went up to Ashley's, and so for first I got on the wrong train. Well, I went south, further south for about a minute, realized my mistake, got back off, and
Hmm.
then this is what I'm really proud of, that I made it from like what was it, 14th Street all
Hmm.
the way up to 73rd Street.
Nice. Nice.
Um, three separate trains, so two connections, and made it all the way up on my own. And and when I told Tamar that, she's like, "You are a veteran now," and I'm like, "I don't know about that, but I've at least been in the trenches."
Hey, you know what? I give you props. I give you props. I at that point I would have been like F it, and I would have gotten a cab or something. But that also would have been an expensive cab ride. But
Well, that's just it. I mean, that is the thing about for anybody who's not familiar with traveling around New York, that's the thing about the subway is that it is a heck
Inexpensive.
of a lot cheaper than driving above ground is.
Correct.
So,
Yeah,
um,
my credit card bill will concur with that assessment. So,
yeah, so it's like one cab ride that I took that was like just a few blocks was the same amount of money as I spent on like several different
mhm.
subway rides.
Yep.
So, um yeah, if you can do it, if you can figure out how to do it, man, the subway's the way to go if it's going in the right direction for you.
Mhm.
So, so yeah, so I got to see Ashley's new place, which is very cute, and
Nice.
yeah, just got to hang out and relax for a little while. That was also like the Mark Jones showed up, got to chit chat with him for a while. Mark is just such a lovely guy. And yeah, just fun and shenanigans and then when it was time to go over to well, Monica, what were you doing that afternoon? Sorry.
Actually, it's okay. Thursday afternoon, I opted to go back to the hotel. I have to admit, I was a little tired. And I wasn't out partying too late the night before. But it just, sometimes we'll just say getting older, right? So I opted to go back to the hotel and just have a nice down tempo afternoon before the lecture, just because I had a feeling it was going to be a later night. So.
That sounds like a good
Um,
idea,
yeah,
honestly.
so chilled at the chilled at the hotel. Did a wardrobe change because I had dinner afterwards, so I threw on my tux. And then headed to the New York Bar Association
Mm-hmm.
for the lecture, which was done by whom,
Oh,
Madeline?
Tess Gerritsen, I think is the
Correct.
name.
Yeah, and it was
Yeah.
an excellent
Oh,
presentation.
so good. I mean, it's not just that the presentation itself was good, that the words were good, it's that she was a good speaker.
Oh, she was dynamic. She was very
Yeah.
dynamic.
Yeah. She knew her audience and she was great. And I don't remember what exactly but there was like this moment when I leaned over and I whispered to Beth, "Oh, she's a nerd."
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
No, it was a great talk about um I forget the exact title of it, but basically about what Watson would have known as a doctor in the late 19th century
Hmm.
and describing medicine, the history of medicine up to that point, and honestly, how horrifying it was.
So, yep,
um,
yep. This is one of the reasons why when I write my essays about mental health, I'm looking, from the modern perspective on backward because it's we'll just say um, what they knew meant in terms of mental health was preciously little.
yeah.
And when it comes to physical health, there's a lot that they didn't know back then as well. And so it's a lot easier to look back from a modern perspective with significant hindsight. But it's also really fascinating to kind of be in those moments and to look through the eyes of a Victorian doctor as compared to looking through a doctor in 2024. So
Hmm.
I
Yeah,
enjoyed
it
it.
does sound very interesting.
Yeah, it was fascinating. And I'm sure at some point that lecture, the audio from that lecture will be available on the BSI Trust website.
Ooh.
So bsitrust.org, I think. So I'm hoping,
Well,
but
the paper should show up in the BSJ, right?
correct, correct.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, no, it was just really good, and I think that everybody who went was very glad that they did. Um, so afterwards is kind of the time when I think a lot of people go off to separate figure out where they're going to go to dinner or have dinners to go to.
Hmm.
Um, and Thursday night of the BSI weekend is when the SPO dinner happens.
Ah, yes, Spode. Spode, Sherlockians for the Prevention of Oysters Destroying the Earth. Founded as a gathering of friends by Steve Doyle, it kind of has evolved into something more than that. It's now a dinner set for 25 people max, because that is the maximum number of people at a single table that the Grand Central Oyster Bar and Grand Central Station in New York will serve. And so it's an absolute madcap 25. I mean, like capped out at 25. This year, all 25 slots were taken within 20 minutes of the announcement. So it's very difficult to get a reservation. I was lucky enough to be part of that for and have been for the last several years, which is lovely. And it's a lot of fun. But also 25 people, one single bill, and all of us trying to figure out exactly how much we contribute always makes for quite the accounting conundrum.
Oh, yeah.
But I mean, the nice thing is though is that if there are other individuals who want to spode but are not able to get in with the main group, you know, there's nothing stopping people from kind of like creating like a sub-spode where it's not the official mothership of spode, but if people want to kind of gather a group of 10, 15 people and make a reservation at Grand Central Oyster Bar on Thursday night, there's nothing stopping y'all. Just
Hmm.
double check with Steve Doyle, but I'm sure I feel very confident he'd give you his blessing. I mean, there's a lot of people who have been doing that for years, even before spode actually was a thing. So, it's a lot of fun though. Good group of people.
And in meantime, Beth and I weren't sure what exactly we were doing for dinner. And then a this just seems to happen naturally sometimes, just a kind of group formed. So Beth, Chris Thornton, Tiffany Knight, and Betsy Rosenblatt and I went down on Tiffany's recommendation because we were kind of like right on the edge of the theater district. So, in the area that Tiffany works. So
Mm-hmm.
she knows the restaurants around there.
Yeah,
And
I wouldn't, we'll just say there are very few people I would trust more than Tiffany's recommendation when it comes to restaurants, especially in that area of New York.
so we went to this little place called Un de Trois. So a nice little French restaurant that
Mm.
is actually, here's the funny thing, it's opposite uh the long room on
Oh,
the other
oh,
side
that's
of the
perfect.
street. Yeah. So the long room being where the ash brunch happens on
Sunday.
Sunday.
Hmm.
So yeah, Un de Trois was a lot of fun, and I actually was also eating shellfish because I had mussels for the first
Nice.
time, and I was like, "Wow, this is pretty great." I mean, it had like nice little white wine sauce that they'd been
Hmm.
steamed in, and no, I was just very happy. I got to try something very new, and it's one of those nice things about like when you don't have plans during the
Hmm.
weekend. Like serendipitous things can happen, and that's lovely.
Oh yeah.
Um,
Overbooking your schedule like I do tends to leave very little room for serendipitous, exploration. And it's a shame because I miss that.
mhm.
But that said, though, this is that I'm okay with what I've done, but I also appreciate the room for serendipitous change and adjustment. So you got to have a really great experience with a wonderful group of people, and I'm kind of jealous.
It was a very nice group, and then we walked back to the hotels and then still made it over to Rosie Den. We did make it over to Rosie Dun's every night
Mhm.
of the weekend,
As
and
one does.
as one does, and it was, yeah. it's just it's a good time. There aren't a whole lot of Sherlockians who can make it out that late. But it's a good group who does show up at Rosie's, and just you just have fun there. They're sitting and sipping your drink and chatting with your friends, and it's
Yeah.
just nice.
It's down tempo, it's relaxing, and that's we'll just say the historical place that Sherlockians used to gather, for the last several decades was called Olani's,
Mm,
which was actually right across the street from Conley's. Or actually, let me rephrase that, right next door to Conley's,
okay.
which is where the Gillette Luncheon, I believe, is hosted.
Hmm.
Um, the problem is that COVID, we'll just say the restaurant was a casualty of COVID, and then the owner, Hugh, passed away not long after the restaurant, closed, which just sucks.
Yeah.
But the Sherlockians were going there, and so at the end of every night, if you were ready, like still wanting to socialize and hang out with people, or if you wanted to network and meet new people, everybody knew that Olani's was the place to be. We're in the process of trying to establish Rosie Dunn's as that place, just because with the BSI dinner located at the Yale Club and the other hotel being the Westin, it's a restaurant or it's a bar that's open till 4 a.m. that is equidistant
Hmm.
between both hotels. And thus making it an ideal location. Plus, Sherlockians love an Irish pub, so yeah, it's a good place. I ended
Yeah.
up at Rosie Dunn's, but threw in the towel pretty early because you and I had a very early Friday morning, and I didn't have an opportunity to nap because my schedule was overbooked on Friday. So Friday morning.
Friday morning, so we had coffee with Bobcats, and that
Oh
was
yes.
lovely.
Bonus point coffee for the insane people, who enjoy getting up early and playing bonus point trivia on Facebook. Now that Bob is off of Facebook, I'm not sure how this is going to be run, but I'm sure we'll figure it out.
Well, he did it on emails this time.
Yeah, yeah, well, a couple of times he did it on email. My bonus points were from before email, but we're just rolling with it at this point, but it's 7:15 coffee clatch with Bob Katz, where he buys us all coffee
It's very
because
lovely.
we're nuts. Um, so
I mean, only for Bob am I getting up at a time early enough to be out the door at 7:50 because usually I'm still asleep at that point
oh yeah,
because of the hours that I work
oh yeah.
normally. But that was nice. And then even after Bob left, a few of us hung around for a little while longer and just chit
Mhm.
chatted. And that was it. That was like the longest that was when I got to, chat a decent amount with Ray Betzner, whom I
Yeah.
adore. So
Mhm.
that was nice. And then went back up to the room and just uh got back into bed, didn't go to sleep, but again, just resting was better than nothing. You went on to a class breakfast, right?
Yeah, my BSI class, the class of 2019, happens to have started this crazy custom of having a class breakfast on Friday of the BSI weekend. It all started that Ira Matetsky, who's a New Yorker and lives actually very close to the Westin, decided the year after we were invested, so January of 2020, he was gonna if we got 100% attendance from the class. Keep in mind there's 7 Americans and 2 Europeans. If we got 100% of the attendance in the class, he would take us all out for breakfast. And he did because there was 100% class attendance. And several of us, because we're lovely, spontaneous people, we all, several of us, actually most of us, showed up with gifts for everybody in the class. And so class gifts became a thing as well. And as this was the 5th year anniversary, Um, we decided to cap this year as the last year that Ira is buying us all breakfast. It's the last year we're giving each other gifts because, 5 years is enough of gift giving for
It's a lot
everyone.
of gift giving.
It's a lot of gift giving, but I mean, there's been some very lovely and personal gifts, from my classmates, and from and it'll just be, we're still going to maintain the class breakfast. Ira's just not going to be picking up the tab for the rest of us, but we seem to have started something because the class of 2021, 22, and 23, as well as actually the class of 2014 all met for breakfasts on Friday morning, kind of taking a cue from us. So I think social media and my obnoxiousness with hashtag class of 2019, and the camaraderie that my class has because we actually like each other, has started something, and I'm not really sad about that.
Aw, yeah. No, I
Yeah,
think it's really nice.
yeah.
Um,
So, then there was that. Then I believe you had lunch.
Gillette Luncheon, yeah. Which ably handled by Shayna Carter. And I don't know what Connolly says that their cap is for that room, but whatever they say it is, they're lying
They usually
because
are.
they should not be stuffing that many of us into that room. It was it was bad.
Yeah, oh,
Which is
it
like,
always is, by the way.
yeah, which is not a criticism of the people running the luncheon.
It
That's
just means that y'all get up close and personal with one another. A little too up close and
a
personal sometimes, but
little too.
shoulder to
Um,
shoulder.
and there were a couple of skits. The problem is if you are on one side of the
Mhm.
room, you cannot see, and in cases of a lot of people cannot hear what's going on. But there was a very funny skit that I did at least hear, where uh, Curtis Armstrong was playing Sherlock Holmes, Ashley Polisek was playing Mrs. Hudson, um, Ken Ludwig was playing Holmes's dummy.
Oh my God.
And so
That's hilarious.
this is when Holmes gets back from the hiatus and reveals himself to Mrs. Hudson, and she's like, eh. And he's like, You're not surprised?" And Mrs. Hudson is like, when your brother told me that he was gonna pay me to keep your rooms in perfect condition, like, I figured that you were still alive." And then when he neglected to send this month's payment, I figured you were coming back.
Fair point. Well, that's hilarious, and it sounds like it was a lot of fun.
Oh,
I heard nothing but lovely things about or about what transpired at the Gillette luncheon.
mm-hmm.
The only reason why I skip it is because I have to admit the BSI dinner, I'm generally a fairly low maintenance human being. 90% of the time, the closest thing that I have to makeup is chapstick and maybe some mascara. But the BSI dinner, because it's kind of like nerd prom, it's my opportunity to wear a pretty dress that I can't really wear anywhere else in Iowa. And I get my hair and makeup professionally done, and that takes time, which means that the Gillette luncheon, which tends to last 2.5 to 3 hours, doesn't quite work with my schedule anymore. So, while you were having some fun at Conley's, I was having a lovely Russian lady by the name of Nika do my hair and makeup and, have her transform me into a princess. So,
I mean, you definitely looked like a princess.
well, thank you. Thank you. I have fun with this. It's my once annual reminder to my a lot of my friends, many of whom, kind of see me as just one of the guys, which is fine. I mean, that's kind of my who I am as a person. I've always been quite the tomboy, but it's my once annual reminder that I can do girly when I need to. So, that's I was busy doing that.
Well, and so to cap off that skit though, the funny
Oh
thing
yeah.
is that which is relevant to this podcast, is that
Mm,
in a sense, Ray
mm.
Betzner played Colonel Moran
Oh
because he's the
no.
one who pulled out a toy
Oh,
gun and
oh,
shot,
Ken
quote
in
unquote,
the
shot
head.
Ken
Oh my
with,
God. Okay, so that's
you
what
see,
that photo
that's
was.
what that photo's about.
That's great. That's first things first. That's a great photo. Double bonus points to official kick-ass photographer Will Walsh.
Yes,
He is
that's an
amazing.
amazing photo. So there's a wonderful photo that Will Walsh got of Ray with holding out his toy gun with the biggest grin on his face, and the gun has, like a
The
little
bang.
flag that says "bang" on
Yeah.
it.
But I'm so sorry I missed that. That would have been hilarious.
It was fun. I wish I could have actually seen it. That's the problem. I was listening to it the whole time. And then a little later on, there was one more skit that involved some people with whom I am not familiar, but Paul Singleton, who I have not met personally but have heard
Oh,
of, as Holmes, and Lee Shackelford as Blofeld. So it was Sherlock Holmes basically as James Bond. So I think that Mycroft was in the role of M because of course, but Holmes also
of
had
course.
a Q,
Mm-hmm.
and then Blofeld came in, and Lee, instead of having a plushy cat, Lee had a plushy bunny, like a big floppy-eared bunny. It was so funny, and it was so cute and so well done. And I love me a good crossover, and that was wonderful.
Oh, that's lovely. And we'll have to get you introduced to Paul Singleton. Both he and his wife or his partner, wife partner, I believe they're married. Nina are truly wonderful and lovely people. So um, I'll just say he's great. He's absolutely great. So I'm sad I missed it.
So after that, Beth and I led a small expedition down to Mysterious Bookshop because Otto Penzler has kind of an open house from
Mhm.
late morning through late afternoon for the Sherlockians, and that's when he opens up the basement. So you get to
Oh
go
yeah.
down to the basement and see the neat things down there. And so I I'm very proud of myself. I controlled myself in my purchasing, um, because I knew that I had to. This was very much a trip on a budget this time. I was being as careful as I could be, but one of the things that I did manage to pick up was the graphic novel. I think it's called Inside the Mind of Sherlock Holmes. That
Hmm.
was translated from the French, and Charles Prepelec has just raved about it on Facebook. And so
Yes, I
I
need to
was
buy
like,
that.
yeah, I picked that up at the bookshop, and I was very excited about that. And also a book of Christopher Morley essays, which made me very happy. But yeah, I had fun, and then made it back up to Midtown, and both ways took the subway, and that was so much better than cabbing it. And I was really proud of us because we got back to the hotel in plenty of time for Beth and I to both get ready before the evening events started, because that was our problem last time. We had not given ourselves enough time for both of us to get dolled up. So this
Hmm.
time we did, and
Hmm.
I was very proud of us. And so she went off to the BSI dinner, and I
Yeah.
went off to the Gaslight Gala. And yeah, oh, Monica, I'm so glad that you got that picture of Beth and Crystal and Heather
Yeah,
because I didn't get any pictures of Beth it dolled up, so like I did last time. So
yeah.
that was really lovely. I mean, they all looked everybody looked terrific.
Oh yeah.
Um,
I mean, this is as I jokingly call it, it's a nerd prom,
it
and
really,
I mean,
really is.
there are a lot of people who go all out, and I mean, dude, I mean, think of it like this, dude. I live in Iowa for crying out loud. I mean, you know, if I like do my normal makeup, like if I actually put forth the effort, my friend Chelsea taught me how to do a smoky eye, and that's become my default when I actually do makeup. That's more than fine. I look good
Hmm.
by default in that case. This, I want to take it up a notch. And even though it cost me a bloody fortune to do that, it's well worth it. You know, so while you and Beth were getting dolled up, Greg and I ended up taking the cab over to you know, over to the Yale Club because we both were on setup crew. Because
Mm.
even though I look all fabulous and amazing, my happy butts got to put some swag bags on the chairs and, you know, make sure that everything is taken care of because I'm part of the crew for that as well. Although
Right.
I'm hoping that I might be able to opt out of that next year because what I've learned is that my hair collapses when because my hair essentially ends up being a sculpture put together by basically bobby pins and hairspray, that it starts collapsing the more that I move.
The more that you move, yeah.
And
Yeah.
setup crew requires a lot of movement, and thus I probably because I spent so much money, I'm gonna see if I can opt out of that.
I
But
think that's only fair.
I think so. I would like to think so too. So we'll see how that goes. But I got to go, and that was great. And also, what was wonderful is that because I got over there early, I got to help some people with their bow ties and you know basically make sure that everybody is all spruced up and straightened up. And it's you know, it's nice because I can tie a bow tie better than most of the guys. So I will take it.
So, we got over to the gala at Slatterly's, which actually that was my first time like properly meeting Brian Bellinger, who was
Ooh,
lovely.
yeah, and
It's
Brian
like
is a
I've
good
been in
guy.
the same space with him before, but not actually like interacting.
Mhm.
Um, so he's very sweet. Um, and where was I going with? Oh yeah, gala. This was the first time that the gala has been on since the virtual Gaslight Gala of 2021. So because, you know, COVID threw everything into disarray, the gala was off for a couple of years. And this time, you know, Anne Andriaco and Chris Thornton and the rest of the committee managed to get this back together. And it was really nice. It actually put me in mind a lot of Lost in New York. I thought it was very similar in tone.
Mhm.
Um, and it was just it was just a lot of fun. It was a nice venue and we like dinner does not uh dinner is not served until 7, so you get there at
Mhm.
6 and actually there are servers walking around with appetizers and I was like, "Ooh, this fancy."
Mhm.
You know, bear in mind, I am a peasant. It
Yeah,
doesn't take
you know
it
what
doesn't
though? It's okay. I mean, you know, in the giant scheme of things, it's nice to have that experience. You know, and not only that, but that's kind of what the pre-dinner, the BSI pre-dinner cocktail party kind of looks like too. So now you know what to expect.
So that was a lot of fun and I got to make a toast which had to come up with really last minute and went totally off the cuff for it, and it worked, which was good because the last couple of times I've gone off the cuff were actually presentations and that didn't work so well. But my toast was off the cuff, and it was to Tibet and the head lama. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and and Brad was really pushing for an actual uh, llama from Peru transported to Tibet. And I was like, Brad, you can do that at the Dangling Prussian. I'm gonna take this, like, I have a direction in mind. Um, so basically it was not a proper toast. It was a series of questions because one of the interesting things about the real life Dalai Lama in
Mm-hmm.
the early 1890s, he was a teenager. And so he was the he it was like a regency basically at the time in Tibet. So there's like there I will have to post this online. There's like a lot of
Mm-hmm.
questions really to be answered about why and how, and foreigners were not allowed into Tibet, so how did Holmes even get in the first place, so on and so forth. So um that was a lot of fun. People apparently enjoyed it.
Mm-hmm.
Margie Deck took a picture of me doing it, which was great because that's the one picture of me in my outfit for the night. Which reminds me, I went in a sequin skirt, and apparent sequins and sparkles were really in this year. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so that was one of the inadvertent themes of the weekend.
Yeah.
Um, so that was a lot of fun. But yeah, it was just a nice night. And Monica, anything in particular that you want to talk about from the dinner?
Well, sure. Okay, so my favorite part, I mean, actually, there's so many favorite parts, but my favorite part of the cocktail party and before the BSI dinner is it's just an opportunity to see everybody in their finest, and so it's mingling, and of course, everybody's checking out everybody, and the gentlemen are looking fabulous, the ladies are looking fine, and everybody's just having a blast because it's again nerd prom. It's great. But during the BSI pre-dinner cocktail party, they announced the tradition of the woman, which
Mm.
is basically the ever-suffering spouse award. I'm still waiting for the male the woman, someday to be awarded, but for now, it's still traditionally the woman, as in like an actual like AFAB individual. And this year's the woman was Pam Wampler, who is Steve Doyle's long-term partner and spouse. And Pam is a wonderful person. She is an ever-suffering spouse. And she's also a licensed mental health counselor. She's a
Oh.
marriage and family therapist. And so Pam and I have, the therapist thing in common. And I just love her so much. So she's always been a genuinely supportive spouse for Steve, always being there in the support realm. She is exactly in many ways what Bill is to me, or she is to Steve what Bill is to me. And so
Mm-hmm.
I loved it.
Aw.
And it was great to see Pam recognized. The dinner is always a lovely time. There's good presentations, good talks, lots of business about, BSI Press and all the things that are going on. But of course, the highlight of the dinner that everybody wants to know about is, of course, the honors list at the end of the dinner. And this year's honors list had 14 individuals. I don't know if you want me to go through that, but the nice thing is I know everybody who was made a member this year, and
Oh, that's
I'm
awesome.
very, very happy for the class. The class of 2024 is a wonderful group of individuals, and I'm particularly chuffed at several of them becoming members. And then, of course, Otto Penzler of the Mysterious Bookshop got the 2 Shilling Award this year, which was
Yes.
also extremely well deserved. So, yay, Otto.
Yeah. Well, so I think it's done alphabetically, right?
Not
The
always, but
Oh no,
that's what happened this year.
that's what
So,
happened this year.
yeah.
So yeah, started it out by Rudy getting invested. And I'm just really happy for him. And then later on down the list, his good friend and mentor, Bob Scharfman, they're both from Chicago, was
Hmm.
also invested. So that's like a really lovely thing for the
Yeah.
both of them to
Oh,
happen. And I
totally.
was just very, very happy. And I'm kind of blanking. Oh, wait, Chuck Kovacic got invested. That was huge.
Yeah.
Oh, your friend Stephen Lee?
Yeah, so I mean, it was a really really good year for Chicago because there was three gentlemen from Chicago that got invested: Stephen Lee,
Yeah.
Rudy, and Bob Scharfman. And then it was a really great night for Boston as well, as four members of the Speckled Band of Boston got in: Dana Mancini, Tom Bridges, Jessica Schilling, and actually I believe the keeper of the Speckled Band of Boston, George Schwartz. And so I will just say, as one of the newer members of the Speckled Band of Boston, I let out quite a few hearty cheers. So, with as someone who has spent a lot of time in Chicago, I mean, that's seven of the 14 just between the two cities. So
Yeah.
it
Wow.
was, I mean, it was a grand night for
Yeah.
both Chicago and the Snakes.
Derek Bellinger.
Yes, from
So
Colorado.
well deserved. Yeah,
Very
Derek
much.
is such a good guy. And, of course, one half with his brother Brian of the
Hmm.
Bellinger Books team, and he's very passionate about Sherlockian education, and just a really wonderful guy. Fabienne from France was
Hmm.
also
Yes,
invested. That was very exciting.
extraordinarily exciting. It was her first
Yeah,
dinner, and I mean, well deserved. Well deserved.
yeah. Lisa Sherwood Fabre from Texas.
Yes,
Uh,
Tejas in the house. We are so proud of Lisa for this. I mean, this is lovely. And
yeah.
she gets to find an opal tiara because she's Mrs. Farintosh.
And then there was also Olivia Ritigliano,
Hmm.
who is the editor of the Crime Reads website, which is a fantastic website. Highly recommend for fans of mystery, crime, suspense fiction, and also true crime and etc. She's great, and I got to finally got to meet her in person afterwards, and we had a great talk.
Oh yeah,
So
Olivia was at my table, and I let out one heck of a big cheer for her because I knew, or I felt like I knew it was coming. So it was a good night.
yeah, yeah, it was wonderful. And there when people finally were showing up at Rosie's that night, there were a lot of cheers, a lot of happiness.
Oh yeah, and because I come prepared as the haberdasher for the BSI, I also had a bunch of winter scarves to deliver, and there were several people that wanted to buy rosettes and ties, and I took care of that right away because I'm always be selling. So
Well, yeah, I noticed that the next day, Rudy was already kitted out, and I just like made just kind of teased him about it. He said something like, "Oh, Monica's persuasive," and I'm like, "Uh-huh, sure. I'm sure it's Monica's fault."
usually is, by the way, usually is.
No, but like if there was anybody in that class who I would expect to get kitted out right away, it would be Rudy.
Oh, of course, of course. I mean, the nice thing is that we do what we can to take care of our peeps, and we'll just say, I think, one of the customs, and I should probably explain this. One of the customs is if you have sponsored someone, or sometimes if you just happen to have a grand affection for someone, what you do is you usually, if they become a member, you give them either your rosettes, your necktie, your bow tie, or now that we have silk scarves, your silk scarves. And so I am now on the pre-order list for the replacement silk scarf because my silk scarf is no longer my own, and I had to replace my rosette. And I ended up buying a few new rosettes for a few other people as well, and other ties. Just because I was lucky, and there were a lot of people whom I care about, and that needed to be kitted out, and I'm not about to let a friend buy their own swag. So
So that was really lovely. And then the next day, Merchant's Room.
Monica works for 3 hours, relieving people of their money in exchange for books and swag.
Did you pick anything particularly fun up though from or were you just selling the whole
I
time?
I sat at the BSI press table and relieved people of their money for three
Okay.
hours. I do my shopping at usually like at the Dayton conference or like the Minnesota conference and such because it's
Fair.
much more down
Fair.
tempo.
Yeah.
But it's 4 hours of work because I have to get there an hour early to set up. But it's basically 4 hours of work, 1 hour of setup, and then 3 hours of pandemonium of everybody trying to purchase books and their merchandise, and also because the BSI merchandise is only available for club members, having to do the screening, which is one of my least favorite part of the job. But it's I will rejoice when I get to sell people, like officially sell people the BSI merch. But unfortunately, the merch is only for club members, and so
Right.
that's one of the reasons why they put me in charge of that, I think, is because I pretty much know everybody, and so it makes it pretty easy to be able to screen appropriately.
So, yeah, not to get into everything that I bought, but I did pick
Hmm,
up a couple of special things
sweet.
um from the table that uh Burt Wolder and Bruce Harris were sharing.
Hmm.
So one book was a shoot, I don't remember the name of it. It's a beautiful hardback. That's a compilation of essays
Hmm.
by the Five Orange Pips
Oh, lovely.
Society. Yeah, so there's only ever five members at a time, right? That's their
I think
deal.
so, yeah.
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 And they're all gentlemen and scholars, so I knew that it was going to be, a good read. And then Bert also had I forget what this is. It's basically the BSI edition of the canon. It's an incomplete canon, but it's
Hmm.
A Study in Scarlet, Sign of the Four, and The Adventures, I think. I think
Hmm.
that's the three books, and it's like edited by Edgar W. Smith,
Hmm.
introduction by Vincent Serret, an assortment of illustrations, but mostly illustrated by Frederick Dorsteel.
Hmm.
And
That's a
uh,
find.
at first I was hesitant, and then like I circled back around. I got down really late. So by the time I was downstairs, like some things were gone, and by the time I made a circle of the room, like the BSI Trust table was packed up already. So things like that. But on my second pass, I was like, yeah, oh, okay, I'll get these books.
Hmm.
And I'm happy. It's like, and they're numbered, right? So this is copy 1499 out of 1500.
Nice.
Um, and also I while I was sort of originally deliberating about the books, Bert reaches behind and pulls up this like paper cup, and he's like, and this was a cup once used by Queen Victoria. I lost it, and Bruce was like, well, there goes all your credibility.
That sounds
Oh,
about right.
I love Bert Wilder. He's amazing.
Bert
Um,
and Scott are frickin' treasures. I love
they
them.
they really are. They really are. So yeah, so I got those books, and I am very happy that I have them.
I'm glad.
Um, yeah, so very special. Afterwards, yeah, we are running on time, but really quickly, the luncheon,
Hmm.
that started out as a cocktail party in Julian Wolfe's home, and now is one of those things that has gotten big, very big over the years.
Hmm.
Held in the Yale Club, and it's just another good time to socialize. That's also when like there's the bidding wars for things
Oh,
for
the auction.
the
Yeah,
auction for
the auction for the
the
John H.
Watson.
Watson Fund.
Yeah, yeah. So that's always that's fun to watch.
Hmm.
I'm only watching.
And I'm relieving people of their money after they bid because that's my goal here. So no, that's that's I mean it's a grand time. Plus you always have the Al and Betsy Rosenblatt
Yes.
poem which is quite fun. And so it's
Uh,
kind of a recap of the dinner, followed by your end poem. I mean, and an official introduction to the people who are present, of the new BSI members, which so it gives them an opportunity to kind of shine and officially be introduced to the community at that point. And so it's quite lovely.
it's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I got to actually sit next to Lee Shackelford at the luncheon,
Mhm.
so that was fun. We chat a lot. And Lee's such a good guy. I mean, I love all my Sherlockian gentlemen.
Mhm.
They're wonderful. And afterwards, a little bit of socializing. Headed back to the hotel. Took a break for a while, then headed
Mhm.
over to Lost in New York. Which is also crowded, but it's still a good time.
Oh yeah.
Run by Jerry and Chris Kegley, and it's just a lot of fun. And for a lot of people, either the luncheon or Lost in New York is going to be like the last thing that they do. And then us really late hangers on go to the Ash Brunch on Sunday morning. But Monica, what did you do
I
Saturday
had
evening?
I got to attend a dinner that was hosted by a couple of friends. And so yeah, we'll just say sometimes on Saturday, how do I put this? One of the joys of BSI weekend is that different people kind of have different customs and traditions.
Mm-hmm.
And so, different people are, kind of hosting different things. And
Mm-hmm.
on occasion you get invited. And Lost in New York, in all honesty, is actually my favorite of the events, just because I absolutely adore Jerry and Chris Kegley.
Mm-hmm.
But it's an opportunity for me to kind of expand and to get to know different people. And so they also understand if every year or two I opt out, of attending their event to leave an
Mm-hmm.
opening for someone else because it's such a grand event. And then kind of hang out with other people because they know I'll be at Rosie Dunn's later in the evening. And so I opted for that. And that was actually pretty cool too. So, then, went to Rosie Dunn's. And then, of course, Sunday brought the Ash Sunday brunch, which is my favorite. It's like a dead dog party, so to speak. Basically everybody is tired and worn out, and just kind of low energy, but still very happy to be hanging out. And a nice, we'll just say Sunday brunch,
Mm-hmm.
which is the last thing that I did because then I had to run back to the hotel, grab my stuff, and then catch a cab to take a flight home later that afternoon.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just a very down tempo, relaxed, um, perfect end cap to the weekend.
Yeah.
And I love it. Next year I'm gonna make a point to try to fly out on Monday instead of Sunday, just so I can enjoy it a little bit more.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind flying out on Monday if I could find a flight that didn't send me out on in the evening on Monday because that's not what I want.
Mm.
Um, but I think next time in a few months, in a few months, sorry, only in a few months, that I will be looking at booking my flight again, but I will be looking into maybe some different options from what I've done these
Yeah.
past couple of times. But it's a
That is one of the bonuses is that the more that you do it, the more that you learn, and the more that you can explore options.
yeah. Yeah, but it was a nice it is a nice low key way to cap and just see people one last time and hang out and and also like I was feeling a little blue because I'm not wanting to leave everybody, but then something that I always forget is that through all the hassle of getting home, by the time I'm finally home, I'm really glad to be home.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's
Uh,
there's the intensity of the emotion and the emotional high
yeah.
of being present, but then of course there's nothing quite like the comforts of home. The downside for me is that on the flight back, I found out that I was exposed to COVID, and so the moment that I got home, I had to quarantine, and I tested negative for a couple of days, which I thought I was in the clear, and then I didn't.
Mhm.
And so,
Well, it's a good thing that you
sometimes that
found out that
happens.
early.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, but
Well, I
yeah,
mean, it happens. I mean, and I
yeah.
tested negative on Monday morning, and I tested negative on Tuesday morning, and I tested negative on Wednesday morning, and I didn't test on Thursday, but Friday morning I tested, and
Oh.
I was down and out with the ick. I mean, and because it's endemic, this is the risk that we take. This is why I'm vaxxed and boosted, is to make sure that it's nothing. It we'll just say that COVID. Doesn't cause more damage than what it should.
Hmm.
It's
Well, you're
basically
doing
a
as much
cold
as
at
you
this
can
point.
do, yeah.
Exactly.
And anything more is out of your hands.
Exactly.
Um, but yeah, since then yeah, been, fortunately, I'm still healthy and I think that I'm gonna stay healthy.
Hmm.
But,
I think at this
been,
point you'll be fine.
yeah,
It's far enough
yeah,
past
yeah.
where you don't really have to worry.
I don't think that it's like it was in the beginning where it could take up to 2 weeks. I don't think
Yeah, I
that's what's
think
happening
I
anymore.
think your gestation, if you've made it this far and you're fine, you're fine. So.
Yeah. Goodness, been blue this week, but I've just got to concentrate on the projects that I'm doing and looking forward to Dayton. I don't know if we'll do a recap episode for that or not, but the Homestyle and Friends conference is coming up at the end of March and I will be speaking and I'm really excited about that. Um and yeah, I just miss everybody. I just miss everybody.
We'll just say you get used to it. And
Yeah,
I'm not saying that in a dismissive way. It's just, you after when you start doing this in the beginning, it hits you really, really hard.
yeah.
The longer that you do this, it will still hit you, but it will hit you maybe a little bit less, just because,
Hopefully.
if as you establish the relationships, and the relationships become older and stronger, you'll still miss people, but you'll be okay, and comfortable in the idea that the friendships will remain, and
Yeah.
that you'll see your friends again, and it doesn't hurt as much. We'll put it that way. At least a decade in for me. That's been my experience. So.
Fingers crossed for me because I think that I feel everything at like about 100% more intensity than a lot of human beings do, which causes me nothing but trouble all the time. But yeah, I mean, it was such a good time and I'm so happy that I did it and I just look forward to doing this again. And yeah, any other closing words than that?
No, I mean, I have to admit, it's my favorite weekend of the year that I get to spend with Sherlockians, aside from the Minnesota conference. I'm not cutting on any other conference, but Minnesota does something incredibly special. And so the Minnesota conference is actually like at the absolute pinnacle, for me. And
I
I'm
think it is
excited
that way
because
for a lot of people.
well, I mean, they I don't know what they do differently, but they do something differently that is just that much more amazing than every other event. And there are a lot of really great events. BSI Weekend is nonstop socialization. And so for me as an extrovert, it's like the ultimate exercise in socializing with my nerd friends, which is why my husband stays at home because there's just too much socializing for my basement dwelling introvert. But he'll come to Minnesota, which is great because he loves the academic stuff and he likes the Sherlockians. And to be fair, I think some of the Sherlockians like him better than they like me, and they should because he is my better half. BSI weekend is a grand time, and you don't have to be BSI in order to have a darn good time. I mean,
Right.
I attended for
Absolutely.
many years before I got it. I received a dinner invitation. This is your second, second BSI weekend. Someday perhaps you'll have a dinner invitation, and so your experience will be a little bit different. But clearly you had a grand time, and
Yeah.
I encourage people to keep on going. It
Yeah,
is an expensive
absolutely.
weekend. It is New York, but it's well worth it if
Hmm.
being around people who share your predilection for Sherlock Holmes is your jam. So
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's such a good time and I love it. Dixie, one of these days you've got to come up with questions for these recaps.
one of these
Something
days.
so
I
that
was
you're not just sitting there listening.
well, I was
No,
just
but I
gonna
enjoy
say,
listening.
Dixie,
I know you do.
someday we need to find a cheap flight to New York in January for you.
Oh, trust me, the flight is not the main issue with
It is
getting
not
there.
the issue.
It is
Okay.
the visa getting there
Ah,
because I live in
gotcha.
South Africa, so they assume that if I want to come there, it's to try and stay there illegally.
Oh, okay, okay. That's a bummer. Um,
One of these days, I'm going to come to some of these events.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I hope. I mean, because I think you would have a grand time. I know for a lot of people, the flight, and I mean, and I actually play cricket. There was a gentleman from South Africa, who I was on in my cricket league in, of all places, Cedar Rapids, Iowa, and I will just say is that I'm aware of the expense of the flight. Um,
Yeah, I mean, it would
yeah.
be expensive as well, but like I've had the money saved up for a long time to come visit Madeline, so we're just waiting for America basically to let me do that.
Yeah.
Well, let us hope, and if there's anything that we can do to try to grease the wheels with the American government, please let us know.
Thank you for doing this with us because this is a lot of fun.
Well, I'm glad, and thank you for having me on. It's been a lot of fun, and I'm glad to be able to add a little bit of color commentary to this wonderful trip. I mean, by no means am I an expert, but I've done it for a decade, and I have a lot of fun doing it. So
The
anyway,
nice thing about having in somebody else to do for a recap episode is that no one person or no two people's experience of a Sherlockian event is going to be the same, and especially with the weekend, it's so highly customizable, really,
mhm.
that you're gonna get very different perspectives and things, and that's lovely. But anyway, let me
Yeah.
just close us out. So, again, Monica, thank you for coming, and thank you everybody for listening. And we will not sure what we've got coming next, but we will see you next time. So, bye.
Bye.
Dynamics of a Podcast was created by Madeline Quinones, with sound design and editing by Dixie Parkinson, and music by Joshua Harvey. We do this podcast purely for the fun of the thing. Thank you for listening, and please join us next time.